Welcome back to the channel everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of the most powerful forces on the planet, the United States Navy. Whenever people see dramatic clips online, like small boats racing dangerously close to giant aircraft carriers or missiles streaking across the sky, it raises a lot of curiosity. How powerful is the Navy really? What kind of performance can it deliver, and just how much money does it take to maintain that kind of dominance on the seas? That's exactly what we're going to break down today, looking closely at the performance and the price of America's naval power. The first thing to understand about the Navy is that it's not just big, it's designed to be everywhere at once. The United States Navy has 11 active aircraft carriers, and these ships are unlike anything else in the world. Each one is basically a floating city, powered by nuclear reactors that allow it to travel for decades without refueling. On top of that, a carrier carries an entire air wing, dozens of fighter jets, helicopters, and support aircraft that can launch missions hundreds of miles away. That means when an American carrier shows up, it brings with it the ability to control the skies, strike deep into enemy territory, and act as a mobile base anywhere in the world. A carrier doesn't travel alone either. It's always protected by a carrier strike group. That group usually includes destroyers, cruisers, submarines, and support ships. Together, they form a nearly impenetrable shield around the carrier. Destroyers in particular are the Navy's workhorses. They carry the Aegis combat system, which can track and intercept dozens of threats at once, whether they're enemy aircraft, cruise missiles, or even ballistic missiles. Submarines travel silently beneath the waves, ready to strike enemy ships or even launch nuclear missiles if needed. When you put all of that together, a strike group is like a moving fortress that can't easily be touched. That's why whenever you see footage of small speedboats getting close, it might look dramatic, but in reality, it's more of a staged or harmless situation. The Navy has layers of defenses. Surveillance aircraft and drones patrol the skies, spotting threats long before they get near. Jets and helicopters can intercept small boats or suspicious aircraft. If something still manages to close in, the destroyers have long-range missiles that can take out targets from miles away. And as a last line of defense, the carriers themselves have close-in weapon systems, rapid-fire guns that can shred anything that gets too close. So, while it makes for a good thumbnail, in real life, a small cartel-style boat would be destroyed long before it became a real problem. Another important part of performance is the aircraft themselves. The Navy flies some of the most advanced jets in the world, like the F/A-18 Super Hornet and now the F-35C Lightning II. These planes give the Navy the ability to strike targets far away with precision. An aircraft carrier can launch dozens of strike missions in a single day, hitting targets on land and sea at the same time. Add in electronic warfare aircraft, airborne radar planes, and helicopters, and you have a complete air package that no other Navy can match. This gives the US not just defensive strength but global offensive reach. Of course, all of this comes at an enormous price. Building just one of the Navy's newest carriers, the Gerald R Ford class, costs around $13 billion. That doesn't include the air wing, which adds billions more. Each new F-35 jet costs over $100 million apiece. Destroyers, like the Arleigh Burke class, run around $2 billion each, while advanced submarines can cost anywhere from $3 billion to $8 billion depending on their role. And those are just the building costs. Operating these ships and planes costs millions every single day once they're deployed. To put it in perspective, the US defense budget in 2024 is around $842 billion, and the Navy's share is over $200 billion. That is more than what most countries spend on their entire military. Critics often point to this as evidence that the US spends too much, but supporters argue that this spending is what keeps the global shipping lanes safe, protects allies, and prevents conflicts from breaking out. After all, about 90% of the world's trade moves by sea, and having a strong Navy ensures that those sea routes stay open. When we compare the Navy's performance with its cost, we're really looking at the price of being the world's superpower. A single carrier strike group can cost tens of millions of dollars a day to operate, when you count crew salaries, maintenance, food, and flight operations. But in exchange, that strike group brings unmatched firepower, the ability to deter aggression, and the flexibility to respond to crises anywhere. Other countries are building up their navies too, especially China, but most analysts agree they are still decades behind in terms of experience and technology. Russia, for example, only has one carrier, and it's often in maintenance and considered outdated compared to US carriers. Another area that shows both performance and cost is technology. The Navy is constantly developing new systems like laser weapons, hypersonic missiles, and unmanned ships. These are designed to counter emerging threats like swarming drones and advanced missiles. Research and development in these areas costs billions, but it's part of staying ahead of potential rivals. Some of these programs, like the Zumwalt-class destroyers, have been controversial because of their high price, but they also represent the cutting edge of naval warfare. So when we review the Navy's performance and prices, the picture is clear: the performance is unmatched, and the cost is enormous. On one side, you have critics who say the money could be better spent at home on healthcare, education, or infrastructure. On the other, you have supporters who argue that naval power is the foundation of global stability and that without it, the world would quickly become a more dangerous place. Both sides agree, however, that no other country has the same combination of numbers, technology, and global reach that the US Navy does. At the end of the day, what the Navy offers is not just military strength, but global influence. It can project power, deter conflicts, protect trade, and reassure allies. That's why the US continues to invest so heavily in it, despite the cost. So whether you see it as necessary or excessive, the reality is that the US Navy remains the most powerful maritime force in history, and its combination of performance and price makes it one of the most fascinating subjects to talk about.